assumed that all electrical power, if we were successful, would be generated by nuclear means. In the 50s, there were essentially two kinds of reactors being developed. The breeder reactor, which EBR-I was a prototype for, and the light water reactor. The breeder reactor breeds plutonium and can recycle it over and over again. It's a very good fuel. The light water reactor is a much simpler reactor, but it produces much more waste. It was chosen by Admiral Rickover to be the reactor for the submarine. There are many things to be said for light water reactors, and there's some to be said against them. But with Rickover's influence, the light water reactor became the principal commercial reactor around the world.
We developed water reactors, but we looked upon that as sort of a near-term, short-range stepping stone to real nuclear power, the breeder reactor. That's what we consider to be the most likely real long-range future for nuclear power. But the water reactor got marketed first.
This was partly a commercial move on our part. In the early 1950s, we were concerned that the Soviet Union, which had kept pace with us in the development of nuclear reactors for power, would steal a march on us and get the commercial business in Europe. So President Eisenhower decided to share the benefits of nuclear energy with other countries. It was called Atoms for Peace.
We've had 50 years now of water reactors, 400 of them roughly all over the world, and they've produced a hell of a lot of waste that we didn't anticipate. You know, you mentioned 100,000 years of stuff that you got to keep isolated from the rest of the world. That's enough to scare a lot of people. That was perhaps the price we paid for commercialization, in the sense that we didn't look ahead.
Nuclear power was developed as a kind of a boutique energy source by utilities executives who really didn't know very much about it. I talked to people who said, well, I heard about it on the golf course from the guy who runs the plant down the road. He's going to build one, so I thought I should too. The first commercial nuclear power plant that was built in the United States was built in Shippingport, Pennsylvania. It was a modified version of a large submarine reactor. One of the major reasons the power company wanted it was because there was a lot of coal pollution in Pittsburgh, and nuclear energy looked to people to be, as it is, a clean form of energy. The first power reactors were fairly small, but the push by the power and light companies of America was to scale them up as quickly as possible. Safety, instead of being inherent in the design of the reactor itself, had to be engineered around it, as it were. You had to have multiple core cooling systems that had to be added on to anticipate possible breakdowns of various kinds. The odds of X happening or Y happening were very small. But unlike those smaller reactors, they really couldn't say it was impossible.